Hey guys, welcome to another video. My name is Ian, I'm Ian the Reader, and today I'm going to be bringing you guys something a little bit different. Today I'm going to be starting a brand new series called Box Talks, in which I discuss Book of the Month. Let me tell you about Book of the Month. What Book of the Month is a book subscription box which costs $14.99 a month, though you can use my referral link in the description to get a cheaper price for your first month. Every month, the Book of the Month team selects 5 books that are either new releases or upcoming releases, and they feature them as the Book of the Month picks. So what you as a Book of the Month subscriber get to do is you get to pick one of the 5 main features to go in your Book of the Month box, and they will send it to your door. It arrives pretty quickly, usually within a week, I would say. Book of the Month is really great because there are options involved. I'm always hesitant when it comes to like book subscription boxes because of the fact that a lot of times you only get the one option, or you don't even find out what the book is until it arrives on your doorstep, and you have to spend a lot of money to get a book that you may not be interested in. What's really great about these books is that they are 5 books that are completely different from each other. It's not like they're all the same genre. Each one of the featured books is in a specific genre. So maybe there is a mystery thriller pick every month, and a contemporary book, or a literary fiction book, or a romance book, or a fantasy book, but they're all from different genres. It's not like you can pick from these 5 contemporary books. You have choices. And then in addition to that, you have your main pick of the 5 you can do, but you can also get up to 2 add-ons for only $10 each in addition to your $14.99 for the first book. So if you think about it, you can get like 3 brand new hardback features that are supposed to be really good for like a fraction of the price that you would normally spend at a bookstore. So it's really great. If you've never done it, I highly encourage you. There are so many great titles. You can also pick from their backlog of previous titles for add-ons. There's so many choices. But like I was saying, I love talking about Book of the Month. I love thinking about what the next picks are going to be, and I really love the discussion around like the titles. And so for this series, I'm going to be discussing what books I think will be featured in the next Book of the Month. That's why I said it's going to be at least monthly. Every month I'm going to talk about my predictions for the upcoming month. But if you guys enjoyed this video, let me know, and I'll do more Book of the Month videos, like maybe talking about the featured titles and more of a deep dive, or the author's backgrounds, or things like that, or doing book reviews of the Book of the Month titles. Let me know what you guys are interested in. I would love to have your feedback. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and jump into my predictions for what I think could be in the December Book of the Month boxes. I've divided this up into genres, so I'm going to be discussing the different books that I think could be featured in each genre, and then at the end of each genre, I'll go ahead and say which one of the ones I've talked about do I think will be the actual pick that Book of the Month goes with. Also, real quick, I wanted to apologize for my voice. I'm actually currently sick, and so I just sound like this. I don't always sound so stuffy and obnoxious, but please bear with me. Thanks, guys. Okay, the first book that I think could be the mystery thriller pick for Book of the Month in December is called Hello Transcriber. It is by Hannah Morrissey. This book is supposed to release on November 30th, and it comes in at 304 pages. Both of those things make me think that it could be a pick for December. It's got the right release date. It has about the right page length, because typically Book of the Month doesn't go for books that are like really long, like 500 pages or more, typically. Sometimes they do. And they also typically don't go for books that are really short, like in the 100 to 200 page. So I think this is a good length, the release date is right, and it sounds really interesting. So it follows a woman named Hazel Greenlee who wants to be a writer. Currently she's working as a police transcriber in kind of a shady area, and essentially one day her neighbor confesses to hiding the body of an overdose victim in a dumpster, and that leads Hazel kind of deeper into this police investigation of this drug dealer named Candyman. And things kind of escalate from there, and she makes some reckless decisions that may not be good for her health or her marriage, apparently. So this sounds really interesting. I think that it could definitely be a pick, and I'm interested to see if it is. Next up is The Maid by Nita Prose. Now this one's a little bit of a long shot for December because it doesn't actually come out until January 4th. That being said, Book of the Month is no stranger to doing early release picks, but I think it could be a pick for either December or January. So this book also comes in at 304 pages, which is kind of weird because Hello Transcriber was also 304 pages. But that aside, it follows a woman named Molly Gray, who is kind of a strange person. She is very meticulous. She just kind of has a strange demeanor as it's described in the description of the book, and when her grandmother dies, she really just tries to find her niche, and what that is being a maid at this hotel. She enjoys that, she enjoys the regularity of it, but then one day she goes in to clean this wealthy and infamous man's room, and she finds the room just totally wrecked, and he is dead in the room. she then becomes a suspect, and things kind of escalate and go from there. I've heard really great things about this book. It has a 4.22 on Goodreads, which is pretty high, especially for only having early reviews. And then, yeah, I think it'd be a really great pick for Book of the Month. I'm not sure if it'll be December, but I think there's a good shot of it being December or January. And the last mystery thriller prediction that I have for you guys today is Reckless Girls by Rachel Hawkins. Now, I think this one is a really strong competitor for the Book of the Month pick spot because of the fact that Rachel Hawkins' last book, The Wife Upstairs, was previously featured as a Book of the Month pick, either this year or last year, I can't quite remember. This one also comes out on January 4th, and so with that, I'm, again, not sure if it'll be this month or next month, but with her having been featured before, I do think there's a pretty good chance that she will have her book featured in Book of the Month. This book follows Lux McAllister and her boyfriend Nico, who are hired to sail 2 women to this remote island in the South Pacific. Originally, at the start of the book, things are going really well. They're all getting along. They have a great time. But then another person kind of enters the scene and changes the dynamic of the group. Secrets start coming out. Nobody is who they seem or appear to be, and things do not go as planned. I've heard some pretty good things about this book, so I'm hopeful that it'll be a Book of the Month pick. I have an arc of this one as well, and I have not read it, so again, maybe it being a Book of the Month pick will finally encourage me to pick it up, but we'll see. So with those 3 books in mind, honestly, I think what's gonna happen, I wouldn't be surprised actually if all 3 of them are featured in one way or another. I can see one of them being a December pick, one of them being a January pick, and then maybe another one being an add-on. Sometimes what Book of the Month likes to do is they'll feature an author's book, and then the next time they come out with a book, they'll feature it as an add-on. So if I had to guess for December, I'm gonna say that Hello Transcriber is the December Book of the Month mystery thriller pick. I think that The Maid could be the January pick, and I wouldn't be surprised if Reckless Girls by Rachel Hawkins ends up being an add-on, honestly. Maybe this month, but more likely in January, if I had to guess. Alright, so now we're gonna go ahead and move on to the romance category. Now, I am not much of a romance reader. I have read a few books in the romance genre, but typically I just don't gravitate towards them. That being said, I have done some research and I have come up with 3 books that I think could be featured as romance picks in Book of the Month. The first of those is Just Haven't Met You Yet by Sophie Cousins. Now, one reason that I think this one could be featured is that last year, her last novel, This Time Next Year, was featured in December as well, and I think it was pretty popular. I've seen quite a few people leave positive reviews for it. But I've seen some buzz for her new title as well, and I can definitely see it being a pick. So essentially, this follows a woman who grabs the wrong suitcase at an airport, and when she goes through the contents of his bag, which is totally normal, she finds herself drawn to the person and his belongings, and it goes from there, I suppose. Reviews for this have been pretty positive, and so I can definitely see this one being a Book of the Month pick, especially because she has been featured before. The release date for Just Haven't Met You Yet is November 9th, so this book is already out, and it comes in at 400 pages. So I think there's a chance this one could be featured, but the fact that it's already out and has been out for a few weeks makes me not so sure. So next up we have The Holiday Swap by Maggie Knox. This book comes in at 351 pages and was released on October 5th, but with it being a holiday-themed book, I can see them putting this in the December box because they typically do stuff like that. I know they had like Anna Holidays by Christina Lauren at one point. They've had This Time Next Year, like I said earlier, by Sophie Cousins or Sophia Cousins. And so they do holiday-themed stuff in December pretty frequently. The Goodreads description of this one says that it's a feel-good, holiday-themed romantic comedy about identical twins who switch lives in the days leading up to Christmas, perfect for fans of Christina Lauren's Anna Holidays and Josie Silver's all one day in December. So, I think it could be a pick. I don't know. Let me know if you've heard of this one or if you think it sounds good, but given it being a romance and the fact that it's holiday-themed, I think there's a pretty good chance that this one's featured in December. And the last one is a little bit of a long shot, but hear me out. This book is Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. Now, there is so much buzz behind Colleen Hoover's books, and if you'd asked me 2 months ago, I would have said that she probably wouldn't have been featured, but last month, they did feature her hugely popular book, It Ends With Us, as an add-on, which is kind of random because of the fact that like this book came out like years ago. But there's just been so much buzz on like TikTok and Instagram over this book that I guess they decided to feature as an add-on. And with them having done that, part of me wonders if they're kind of leading into featuring her new book as a main title. So Reminders of Him isn't supposed to come out until January 18th, so that's another reason why it's a little bit of a stretch, that and it being Colleen Hoover. But it says a troubled young mother yearns for a shot of redemption in this heartbreaking yet hopeful story from #1 New York Times bestselling author Colleen Hoover. It comes in at 335 pages. Like I said, I'm not sure if it'll be featured, but I think there's a good chance that it could be. So with the romance books, I think that my prediction is that it's going to be The Holiday Swap by Maggie Knox, just because of the fact that the first one, Just Haven't Met You Yet, came out weeks ago, so I'm not sure if it'll be featured. And then the Colleen Hoover one, I think could be a pick in January, but I don't think that they're going to do an early release for this one, at least not this early. And so I think it could be a January pick, but I don't think that it's going to be featured in December. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and move on to my contemporary predictions. So I only have 2 contemporary predictions just because there are some that could fit into contemporary or romance or contemporary or literary fiction, but these 2 I feel can be most accurately defined as contemporary, and so these are the 2 that I think could be picks. The first book I'm going to predict is The Way We Weren't by Phoebe Fox. This book came out on November 9th, and it is 384 pages, so it's just the right page length. It did come out a few weeks ago, but I can still see it being featured. The Way We Weren't is described as an unlikely friendship between oh my gosh, what is that word? A septuagenarian? I don't know what that is. And a younger woman becomes a story of broken trust, lost love, and the unexpected blooming of hope against the longest odds. Okay. You know, it sounds pretty interesting. It has really positive reviews. It doesn't have a lot of reviews, but it does have a 4.43 on Goodreads, and I think it could be a pick. So yeah, there's that. And the last contemporary pick that I have as a prediction is Wish You Were Here by Jodi Picoult. Now with this one, I think this one is also a little bit of a stretch because Jodi Picoult is a hugely popular author and she's never been featured on Book of the Month before, but I don't think it's impossible. So this book is about a woman whose life is going according to plan for her. Everything seems to be going great, but then when she goes on vacation, a pandemic hits and she ends up being quarantined in the Galapagos Islands, and things kind of go from there. I have seen a lot of really great reviews for this book. I've never read anything by Jodi Picoult, but it seems like people are pretty interested in it, so I could see this definitely being a Book of the Month pick. This book does release on November 30th, which makes sense because I don't think with a release this popular they would have done an early release, and it falls right around the time that people will be ordering their December boxes, so I think the date is perfect. It comes in at 336 pages, and I really do think this is a shoo-in for the December pick. Between the 2 contemporary books, I would definitely have to say Wish You Were Here by Jodi Picoult is my prediction. And now we're gonna go ahead and move on to historical fiction. My first prediction for historical fiction is The Sister Suite by Elizabeth Wise. Now this book sounds really interesting actually. It says a young woman in a vaudeville, I don't know if that's the right way to say that, sister act must learn to forge her own path after her twin runs away to Hollywood in this richly immersive debut about love, family, and friendship. So apparently these 2 sisters were pretending to be conjoined twins in this like act that they did together, but one of the twins decides to leave, and so the other sister now has to forge her own path. It sounds pretty interesting, and it's supposed to come out November 30th, so again, the date works out perfectly, and it is 416 pages. So it's a pretty good length. It's a little bit long, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's picked. Next is one that I'm actually really excited about. It is called Beasts of a Little Land by Juhia Kim. I don't know if that's how you say that, I'm so sorry. But it says an epic story of love, war, and redemption set against the backdrop of the Korean independence movement following the intertwined fates of a younger girl sold to a courtesan school and the penniless son of a hunter. This sounds really intense, really moving. It's supposed to come out December 7th, so it would be a little bit of an early release, but not crazy early because by the time the books arrive in the mail, you know, it'd be coming out within a number of days. And so I think this could be a pick. It's 416 pages, so again, a little bit long, but not crazy, so I think this could be a pick as well. So between those 2 historical fiction books, I would honestly say that they're probably gonna go with The Sister Suite. I would prefer Beasts of a Little Land, and maybe it'll be an add-on, but I think that it's gonna be The Sister Suite. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and get into literary fiction. My first prediction for literary fiction is 5 Tuesdays in Winter by Lily King. Now this is a collection of short stories, which Book of the Month sometimes does. I think they've only featured 1 or 2 other short story collections this year as main picks. Or maybe not at all, actually. That may have been last year that the Office of Historical Corrections was featured. But with this one, I think there's a pretty good chance because Lily King has been featured before. Her last novel, Writers and Lovers, was featured and was pretty popular on Book of the Month. And this collection of short stories has been getting a lot of buzz. It comes in at 240 pages, which is a perfect length for Book of the Month, and it did come out November 9th. So that's the only thing that's making me think it won't be picked as the November 9th release date, but there's a chance. And my second pick for literary fiction is kind of one that I don't think they're gonna pick, just because it seems a little bit too out there for Book of the Month, but it's one that sounds really interesting to me, and I thought I'd feature it anyway, and that is called White on White by an author whose name I can't pronounce. I'm not even gonna try, but it's right there. This book is really interesting, or at least the description of it is. It is only 192 pages, which makes it a little short, so I really don't think that this one is gonna be featured, but I wanted to talk about it anyway. And the reason for that is the description. Listen to this. A student moves to the city to research Gothic nudes. She rents an apartment from a painter, Agnes, who lives in another town with her husband. One day, Agnes arrives in the city and settles into the upstairs studio. In their meetings on the stairs in the studio, at the corner cafe, the kitchen at dawn, Agnes tells stories of her youth, her family, her marriage, and ideas for her art, which is always just about to be created. As the months pass, it becomes clear that Agnes might not have a place to return to. The student is increasingly aware of Agnes's disintegration. Her stories are frenetic, her art scattered and unfinished, white paint on a white canvas. What emerges is the menacing sense that every life is always at the edge of a disaster, no matter its seeming stability. Alongside the research into human figures, the student is learning from a cool distance about the narrow divide between happiness and resentment, creativity and madness, contentment and chaos. Whoa, that sounds so good. Maybe it just sounds good to me, but I think it sounds awesome. I'd be super happy if this one was featured. I don't think it will be, but there you go. This book comes out on November 30th as well. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and jump into the fantasy picks, which I'm a huge fantasy fan. If you've seen any of my videos before, you know that I read a lot of fantasy. So some of these have been on my radar and some of them have not. So we're gonna go ahead and talk about my 3 fantasy predictions. The first book I wanted to talk about is A Marvelous Light by Freya Marski. This is the first book in a series, and it is also a debut novel, which Book of the Month loves to feature debuts. It says that it is red, white, and royal blue meets Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell in debut fantasy author Freya Marski's A Marvelous Light, featuring an Edwardian England full of magic, contracts, and conspiracies. That sounds great. I'm into it. And yeah, it comes in at 377 pages, and the release date for it was November 2nd, so it's a little bit late, but I think it could still be featured just because it seems like a huge Book of the Month pick kind of book in my opinion. Now the next one is sort of a fantasy book, but it could also be defined as like a mystery thriller. I think it has more like fantastical aspects to it, maybe even some magical realism, but I wouldn't necessarily say that it is a fantasy, and that is A History of Wild Places by Shay Earnshaw. This book has been getting a lot of buzz. I've been wanting to read it for a while, so I'm really excited about it coming out, regardless of whether or not it's a Book of the Month pick, but it seems like it really could be. So, Travis Wren has an unusual talent for locating missing people. Hired by families as a last resort, he requires only a single object to find the person who has vanished. When he takes on the case of Maggie St. James, a well-known author of dark, macabre children's stories, he's led to a place many believe to be only a legend. Called Pastoral, this reclusive community was founded in the 1970s by like-minded people searching for a simpler way of life. By all accounts, the commune shouldn't exist anymore, and soon after Travis stumbles upon it, he disappears, just like Maggie St. James. Years later, Theo, a lifelong member of Pastoral, discovers Travis's abandoned truck beyond the border of the community. No one is allowed in or out, not when there's a risk of bringing a disease, rot, into Pastoral. Unraveling the mystery of what happened reveals secrets that Theo, his wife Kala, and her sister Bee keep from one another, secrets that prove their perfect, isolated world isn't as safe as they believed, and that darkness takes many forms. This sounds so good. I would be so happy if this was a Book of the Month pick. It's supposed to come out on December 7th, so the date is right. The page count is 368, and I think it would be so good. So I'm really hopeful that A History of Wild Places is the Book of the Month pick. Again, I don't know how fantastical it is. There's certainly some elements of it, but it also seems like kind of mystery thrillery as well. So yes, I'm all about it. And the last fantasy book that I wanted to feature is called Daughter of the Moon Goddess. This is also a debut fantasy novel, and it seems right up Book of the Month's alley. It is supposed to be released January 11th, so it could be in January, but I could see this one being an early release, especially because it's debut. With debuts, sometimes they do feature them as early releases just to kind of build the buzz around them, so I could see that happening. It is 512 pages, so it's a little bit on the long side, but not too crazy long, so it could be featured. This is a captivating debut fantasy inspired by the legend of Chang'e, the Chinese moon goddess, in which a young woman's quest to free her mother pits her against the most powerful immortal in the realm. This sounds awesome. It's the start to a duology, and I'm super interested in this one. I'd be really happy if this was the fantasy pick. I'm honestly going to say that it's going to be A History of Wild Places. The date fits, the description is great, and the page count is great, and so I really think that this one could be the pick for fantasy. The only thing that makes me not sure about it is that it couldn't strictly be called fantasy, and if we're excluding it then from fantasy, I would have to go with Daughter of the Moon Goddess, but it could go either way. Lastly, I just wanted to briefly touch on a few books that I don't think will be featured as main picks, but I think could be add-ons. I'm gonna go ahead and talk about 3 of those. The first is You Can't Be Serious by Carl Penn. This book could be featured, especially because they've been really into nonfiction books and like celebrity memoirs lately. I feel like there have been a lot of those this year, and this one just came out on November 2nd. It's 384 pages, and it seems like it could be a fit for Book of the Month. The next one that could be an add-on is The Sentence by Louise Erdrich. I don't know how to say that, but I've seen a lot of buzz for this one. I've seen a lot of people wanting it to be a Book of the Month pick, and I think it could be. It came out November 9th, and so this is a really, really popular author, and I don't think that they would have released it early, but now that it's been out for a few weeks, I could see it being featured as an add-on. And then the last one that I think could be featured as an add-on, or maybe a main pick, honestly, is The Ballerinas by Rachel Kapelke Dale. This book has been getting a lot of buzz. I'm not really sure whether it fits into like the contemporary or mystery thriller or fiction genre in general, but this book has been getting a lot of buzz, and it seems like a book that could be featured as a Book of the Month pick. But that is it. Those are my December predictions for the December Book of the Month box. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video and found some great titles that you can be excited about. Let me know in the comments which books you think will be featured in the December box or which books you're really excited about. Personally, if I could pick any of these to be featured in the box, I would really, really love it if, Personally, if I could pick any of these books to be featured in the December box, I would really love it if A History of Wild Places were to be featured. I'm also pretty interested in Beasts of a Little Land, as well as the Jodi Picoult book. And honestly, The Way We Weren't by Phoebe Fox would be pretty good too. There are just so many great books coming out right now. I would be super happy with a lot of these, and those are my predictions. So again, let me know what your predictions are. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and stick around because I post videos every Tuesdays and Fridays, and sometimes on the weekends. I will see you in the next video. Don't be a stranger. Bye, guys.